Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in today's second video. Going to have a look at the weather for next week's 10 days. For today's second video, let's take us to around the 7th of July. So we're going through the first week of July with the week to 10 day updates now. We'll also have a look at the Beijing Climate Center for the next 40 days. That will take us just into the start of August. So that will take us to the final month of the summer of 2018. So it's been very dry and hot for the past few days. And this dry, hot weather is going to continue for more days to come. It's all covered by the 5-day forecast. By the end of the 5-day forecast period, which is Sunday to Monday, might just be seeing a few signs of some thunderstorms pushing up from the south, but it's a long way off and there's a lot of uncertainty about that at the moment. So it'll be one of those situations where we'll have to keep you posted over the next few days. But certainly in the next few days, there's going to be more dry and hot weather to come. So have a look at the 5-day forecast and see what you think. Going to start off by having a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly for June. So far. So this is how June is looking in terms of the reanalysis for its 500 millibar geopotential height anomaly. And you can see why it's been such a warm and dry month, because it has a very strong anticyclonic signal indeed, with this ridge extending from the Atlantic through the UK and covering many parts of Europe as well. We have had below average heights in the Atlantic, close to Greenland, and also to the north of Scandinavia, and also going down into Russia. So you can see where the jet stream's been. The jet stream has been here, in that sort of position, well to our north, doing something like that. And we've been placed under that ridge of high pressure, blocking out the Atlantic, sending the jet stream off to the north. So the rain-bearing where the systems have been pushing off up to the north, and we've just been kept under that area of high pressure throughout the vast majority of the month. So if we have a look at our analogues, these were the top 5 Junes for our analogues for the summer forecast. So we were expecting June to be an anticyclonic month, and you can see it's not identical, but it is fairly similar to what's happened. We've got this area of above average heights extending in from the Atlantic through the UK and into Europe as well. The jet stream is up there with our top 5 analogues for the summer in terms of June. So it's not a perfect match, but it's kind of there or thereabouts in terms of a broad pattern, particularly with the idea of high pressure building through the UK. If I show you the top 3, and it looks like that. So this is how the top 3 Junes look for our analogues for the summer forecast, which was June's 1889, 1989 and 2001. Again, anticyclonic signal with above average heights very close to the country, and also going up to the northeast of below average heights around Greenland, and the jet stream going up to our north as well. So we always expected June to be an anticyclonic month, to have a lot of high pressure, to be a warm month, be a dry month. So that side of the forecast come off very well. It gets more complicated for July and for August too, because our analogues were pointing towards a deterioration through July and August to something rather more unsettled. But even then, we thought there would still continue to be quite a lot of hot weather through July and August. And of course, 1989, the summer of 1989, is a top 3 analogue for our summer forecast. So you see it there within the June part of the summer forecast. And 1989 was a very hot summer from beginning to end, really. So that's why the summer forecast was a little bit complicated. We was unsure whether we would get this deterioration through July and August, but still potentially quite hot. Or whether actually 1989 will come through as the stronger of the analogues, in which case we may get this hot and dry weather lasting throughout most of the summer, because that's what happened in 1989. It was one of those 2 back-to-back very hot summers of 1989 and then 1990. So July and August is the more complicated part of the forecast, really. June was always expected to be hot, dry, settled, anticyclonic, and then it all starts getting rather more complicated in July and August. So let's just wait and see where things go over the next few weeks. But even if we do get back deterioration in July, we may do. Even if we do, I suspect we will still continue to have quite a lot of hot weather at times. Just maybe not continuously hot and particularly dry. We may see the weather turning more unsettled, probably thundery initially. And even with that, though, I think there will still be a lot of warm weather to be had through the course of July. We'll see how this progresses over the next few weeks. Central England temperature is looking like that, so it's on the way back up again. It went under 16 degrees for a while, but now provisional to the 26th of June, we're standing at 16.0, an anomaly again of around 2 degrees above average. That's probably going to lift up even more before month's end, so I think we'll finish up probably somewhere around 16.2, 16.3. Very warm June indeed. Not the warmest on record. The warmest of the 20th century was June 1976, which came out with a CET of around 17 degrees, so a degree hotter than this June so far. And the actual warmest June on record was a very, very long time ago. In terms of the CET, I think it's 1846, which came out with a CET of 18 degrees, incredibly hot June, and that is 2 degrees hotter than the June that we are experiencing right now. So that must have been a phenomenal June, to say the least, back in the Victorian era. But very warm June nonetheless, and of course this comes after April and May, which are both coming out around 2 degrees above average. But before that, February and March were the two colder months that we've had so far this year. January was also relatively warm. We'll see how things go with that. And of course, the other side of this story for this month has been the dryness. Incredibly dry. Some places recording no measurable rainfall at all throughout the whole of the month, and that's the reason that we're seeing those nasty grass and wildfires up in the north of England, just because it's been so very, very dry for virtually the whole of the month. So these are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles the next couple of weeks. We're looking at Ipswich today. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Ipswich. Obviously very warm at the moment. It's hot at the moment. It's going to be staying very warm too. A temporary dip in the temperature at Ipswich in the upper air temperature in the next day or so, just as we put in some slightly cooler air from off the North Sea with these easterly winds. But generally, it's a very warm scene for the rest of the week and into weekend, and even into the start of next week too. As we go through next week, and that's this period just here, we find that the upper air temperatures are lowering. It's quite a slow process, but very gradually through the course of next week, those temperatures are cooling down back to average. There are actually a few ensemble members, but again, really quite cool within the GFS ensemble suite. But some ensemble members are keeping things quite warm as well. So there's a little bit of a split. But I think overall, the ensemble is favouring a cool down as we go towards the end of the first week of July and then on into the second week of July. Lots of dry weather coming up as well. So no rainfall up to Sunday. That's Sunday, 1st of July just then. Now, yesterday, the model was predicting, and the ensemble was predicted we'd start to move thunderstorms up from the south, from Biscay and France on Sunday. Not much sign of that on the GFS ensemble for Ipswich. It's not till next week now that the precipitation spikes do start coming through. Eventually, it does turn quite unsettled later in the first week of July and through to the second week of July. That period just there, there's quite a few rainfall spikes. But that's been put back a little bit compared to yesterday. So we have to be cautious about this change to more unsettled conditions. If day by day, the model and the ensemble keeps putting back this change to more unsettled weather, but obviously it will never arrive. It will just keep getting pushed back further and further. So I still think we probably will bring up some thunderstorms from the south at the end of the weekend into the start of next week. We cover this in the 5-day forecast. I think there will be some thunderstorms in the south, but how widespread they are and whether this is a genuine breakdown to the prolonged high pressure dominated pattern that we had through June I think we have to be quite cautious about that at this stage. So temperature anomalies are remaining above average. It's taking us from the 27th of June to the 5th of July, significantly warmer than average for the UK and Ireland. Most western parts of Europe coming out substantially warmer than average too, with the temperature anomaly. Precipitation anomalies are like that. So you can see there is a risk of thunder in the south. Again, this is the precipitation anomaly from the 27th of June to the 5th of July. You can see northern France in the next week is going to be substantially wetter than average. That's from thunderstorms from that thundery low around Biscay that's trying to push northwards. And we do just about go a little bit wetter than average in these very far southern counties, but generally through most parts of the UK and Ireland we're still coming out drier than average in those red colours for the precipitation anomaly from the 27th of June to 5th of July. So this is a very subtle pattern, and if the high pressure just happens to be ever so slightly stronger than the model predicts, then these storms are going to be kept on the other side of the channel, and we will never get a particular breakdown, maybe just a few rogue thunderstorms in the south, but it will stay dry for another week. Of course, the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get, because it has been very, very dry. I can't emphasise that enough. Over the past month, really has been incredibly dry across many parts of the country. If this continues to go on over more weeks, then the situation will start to get rapidly quite critical, I think, for some parts of the country. So that's how the GFS is looking for Saturday. Again, this is covered by the 5-day forecast. High pressure in control Saturday, going to be dry and very warm, locally hot in places too. There's that thundery low that's across France and wants to move northwards, taking storms out of the Bay of Biscay and from France push them up into the UK. On Sunday, we still have a major influence from high pressure up to the northeast, so this low pressure is being held off quite a lot on Sunday. But by Monday, the low pressure has actually pushed northwards, so it has managed to get itself into southern parts of England. So from Sunday to Monday, that would take those thunderstorms northwards into central southern parts of England and Wales. There's good levels of Cape available as well, so you see those yellow colours there, indicating that if showers do break out, there's high levels of convective potential. Lightning and thunder is a distinct possibility. That's where the model is placing those storms on Monday afternoon, evening. So through the south, through South Wales, through the Midlands, into central southern parts of England, not much into the southeast, because that's prone to change. And we may never get that low pressure getting that far northwards. We just have to wait and see. But you notice for most of northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, it still remains dry even up to Monday. Then we go through to Tuesday and Wednesday, and the weather patterns start to turn very slack. So I would think any storms becoming quite scattered, just remaining fairly quiet, quite warm, and pretty dry. Probably not as hot as it's been this week, but even so, still above average with the temperatures into the second half of next week. So we start to bring low pressure down towards northern Scotland. So that is turning a bit more unsettled for Scotland and Northern Ireland. The jet stream's beginning to push southwards, but still ready for the south. We still have an influence from this Azores high, or from the ridge from the Azores high, I suppose I should say. So even up to the end of next week, there's a reasonable amount of dry, quite warm weather in the south. That's how things look at day 10, with the ridge from the Azores high still keeping it mainly dry in the south, but the north has turned cooler and a little bit more showery as well. In the extended range, we bring this low pressure down from the northwest on Saturday the 7th of July, so that's bringing wet weather across much of the country. And then we go into a situation with high pressure centred to our west as we go through the second week of July. We've got this ridge out to the west. So that's still keeping things pretty dry, even into the second week of July, really. High pressure is still blocking off the Atlantic. The difference is in the position of that high pressure. The jet is still more or less where it's been all the way along. The only difference is with the high pressure out to the west, the air is coming around the top of the high pressure from sort of the northern Atlantic. So at the very least, it's a cool down that. It would be a lot cooler compared to what we've got at the moment. But still reasonably dry, still really quite dry indeed, as the Atlantic is primarily blocked off by that area of high pressure. If we want a sustained wet spell, we really need to get that high pressure back out to the Azores and maybe over towards Bermuda and bring the jet stream through the country properly. Probably get high pressure building over Greenland as well. That would send the jet stream much further south, and we're then going to a wet spell. There's no sign of that at the moment. That's how the ECM is looking. So again, for the weekend, high pressure is in control of the weather. That takes us to Monday. You'll notice midnight on Monday, that low pressure is not as far north as the GFS has it. So it's still more or less around Biscay and France, and most parts of the UK are actually still under this ridge of high pressure across the country. Low pressure does get a bit closer to us, but it's not till Tuesday and into Wednesday, but it looks like we've probably got some sort of thundery stuff happening down in the south, but that's a long way off, of course. It's a week away, but eventually the ECM does get us into a slightly thundery scenario through the course of next week. And then as we go up towards day 10, that's how we look. Again, similar to the GFS, really. High pressure is still in control here, but the only difference is that, again, the high pressure is more centred to the west. So the air coming around the top of this high pressure is cooler. It's coming from the northern Atlantic, but still generally, you'd have to say a lot of dry weather would be coming through with that. That's how the upper air temperatures look. They are substantially cooler. Remember, we've got this big cold pool of sea surface temperature anomalies sitting in the northern Atlantic. So if we start to pull the air down from the North Atlantic, because the sea surface temperature anomalies are quite cool, then the air could actually become surprisingly chilly, given all the hot weather that we've had recently. But although it's lowering the temperature, it is still very dry, that, up to day 10. Finally, just have a look at the Beijing Climate Center for the next 40 days. So these are 500 millibar heights. They're broken down into 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 26th of June through to the 5th of July. The coming 10 days essentially has high pressure in control, centering over the country, with the below average heights where the jet stream is, of course, going up to our north. So that's pretty much as we've had all through June, with high pressure in control of weather. We know there is this thundery low that's threatening down to the south, that wants to push northwards and bring some storms, but the Beijing Climate Center isn't really that interested in letting that back in. And then the next 10-day period looks very anticyclonic too. This is the 6th through to the 15th of July, with again above average heights over the top of the country, but below average heights with jet stream continue to be to our north. So to the middle of July, the Beijing Climate Center wants to keep things very dry and probably at times quite hot too. That's the next 10-day period. It takes us from the 16th through to 25th of July. The above average heights are weakening. They're still there, but they are beginning to weaken and potentially slip a bit further eastwards. Below average heights with the jet stream just there, possibly signs that the jet is coming southwards a little bit, placing that ridge under a bit of pressure. But essentially, it's still quite a lot of dry weather. Still quite hot at times, I would have thought, even into the second half of July, but maybe turning gradually more unsettled as that jet stream begins to edge further south. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, which takes us from the 26th of July through to the 4th of August. There's signs then that the jet stream is moving south. The above average heights are beginning to slip down to our south and southwest. The black line showing where the jet stream is coming through the middle of the Atlantic into the UK. And so probably transitionally, but I think that would be turning through the end of July into the start of August. That would be turning more unsettled, probably a bit cooler, and probably starting to move in some bands of rain from off the Atlantic as well. But of course, that's days 31 to 40, so it's a really, really long way off. It's in the most unreliable part of that update from Beijing Climate Center, and it's not until days 31 to 40 where we do have definitive signs of the jet stream coming back south. And so essentially most of July with Beijing Climate Center is being forecast to be dry and quite hot at times as well, I would have thought. So that will give us another month, potentially, of very dry weather. And by the end of July, if this pattern has kept up, that we've had through June, if this is kept up to the end of July, then things will be starting to get quite serious, I think, in terms of the rainfall deficit. So, perhaps a little bit worrying, particularly for farmers and growers at the Beijing Climate Center run, because it suggests that July is shaping up to be a very dry and at times warm month as well. Of course, that's all speculative. It's all model based. They are prone to chopping and changing in the more reasonable time frame, which is like the next week to 10 days. So we're going to try and move a thundery low up from Biscay and France. How much influence that has at the end of the weekend into the start of next week remains to be seen. It might bring thunderstorms up from the south, but through particularly central northern parts of the country, probably a lot of dry weather continuing even into the start of next week. And then through the course of next week, possibly turning a bit more unsettled in the north, still reasonably warm and dry in the south, maybe temperatures lowering as the wind begins to move down from the northern Atlantic. Right, don't forget to check out the 5-day forecast if you haven't yet done so. But that's all for now. That rounds today's videos up. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.